Thank you so much for joining us, Kay Murray, Mark Ogden and Sheka Hislop on this fine Friday for you. So much to talk about. We've got domestic football back, and it was back with a bang as well. We got a Manchester City Liverpool game in the Carabao Cup. We've got a preview of the Premier League, which is just around the corner now. We'll be talking some transfer news too, and about the future of Messi as well. So thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with that 5-goal thriller, guys, between City and Liverpool. What a way to welcome back the domestic football to the calendar after all that World Cup action for us. There's lots to get to with this game, so I'll just start with your overall thoughts from what we saw. Shaka, I know you were on the show last night on ESPN FC. I mean, this just gave us a great taste to have Premier League football back, didn't it?
It really did, and everybody kind of brushing off their cobwebs, and you saw that early on. Erling Haaland put a shot wide that you'd have put your mortgage on him burying in the first couple of minutes. Palmer did similarly, almost comically. But then once Erling Haaland got on the end and opened the scoring, the game started to have a kind of usual mid-season feel. And in all honesty, I thought City started by far the bright of the two. The way they pressed Liverpool, I thought was really good and figured kind of looked like the entire game was going to be played in Liverpool's half. But then Liverpool kind of come to terms with that, were able to pass their way out of that pressure, got themselves back on level pegging. And this game really took on a feel of not just league action, but two of the best clubs in the league in action. And in the end, as you mentioned, Kay, it was a 5-goal thriller. City get the better of it, but Liverpool might come away from this one thinking that, but for a couple of gilt-edge opportunities from Darwin Nunez in particular, we could have been having a very different discussion today.
Let's stick with that then, Mark, shall we? Darwin Nunez, as Shaka mentioned, those big chances for him. He's an expensive signing. Can he afford to be missing those chances?
Well, no, obviously. I mean, he needs to be putting them away. And I do wonder about Darwin Nunez, whether, I think the discussion last night was about he's a little bit older than Haaland, so he's got a bit more under his belt. But you look at the two players, and the night and day, the difference. And obviously, Haaland came from a much smaller fee than Nunez. I do wonder at times whether everything's a little bit rushed. I think that probably is down to a bit of lack of confidence. He's trying too hard. There's no thought to it sometimes. And the only time there was a bit of thought was when he teed up Salah for the goal. But even then, I wonder whether that was down to his lack of confidence. Because if he was playing well and scoring goals, he wouldn't have passed. He'd have taken the shot. So it was a strange kind of assist to make. And I think Salah was caught a little bit surprised by it, the fact that the striker's got a shot on goal and he squares it. Right decision in the end because he scored. But I do think that he needs to calm down a bit and just relax. But I'm just not sure whether Nunez is that sort of player. I do think he's one of these guys that everything is at 100 miles an hour. He's very raw. He's got something, but I'm not quite sure yet what it is. And I think, we saw Roberto Firmino took a while to settle at Liverpool when he came from Hoffenheim a few years ago. But you look at Firmino now, and he's an outstanding centre forward. And I do wonder whether the problems that Nunez is having to settle in, whether Liverpool might just look at Firmino's contract and say, look, we're going to have to extend his contract here. He's out of contract in the summer. He's got 6 months left. I think ordinarily they'd move him on because he's now in his 30s. But with Firmino what you're going to get. You've got a guaranteed, proven Premier League player, and he might have to be the bridge between now and maybe 18 months before Nunez, really hits his form. But he might not. Sometimes players make big moves and they don't actually fit the club they go to. He's a good player, but whether he's just the wrong player at the wrong club, who knows? But it's beginning to look like he needs to find something to click because it's just not quite working for him right now.
I think Mark's if I can interrupt, I think Mark's a little harsh on Nunez with the assist. I thought it was a really good ball. And it kind of, I thought everything about that kind of speaks to Nunez's strengths. He's best when the game is physical and he has to use his physicality. And that's what you saw. That gallop down the left-hand side was past Laporte. I'm trying to remember who it was who he left trailing in his wake. And I thought it was a really good ball to pick out Mo Salah. And I'm not sure the shot was on. Maybe the shot was on if you're a Mo Salah. But other than that, I thought that's what Nunez is at his best. But you play him through the middle, you ask him to be a finisher, and that's when I thought he let himself and Liverpool down. When he was through the middle and when those chances fell to him as opposed to being provider. And the fact of the matter is, you can't stick Nunez out wide. Liverpool just don't have have that space. Salah likes to come from wide. Luis Diaz, when he's back fit, and I know he's had a setback, he likes to come from wide. Carvalho also likes to come from wide, though he's happy to tuck in the center. Carvalho is not a center forward either. So you have to play Nunez through the middle, and he just where Mark I think is absolutely right. He's desperately lacking in confidence as a central striker.
Okay, so let's tell you about somebody who isn't lacking in confidence when it comes to this game. Is Kevin De Bruyne. This was a completely different Kevin De Bruyne to the one that we saw a few weeks ago for Belgium in the World Cup, Shaka.
Yeah, it was. And this is his happy place. Listen, I think everything that's going on went on during the World Cup for Belgium, I don't think reflected on, sat well with anybody in that Belgium squad, an incredibly talented squad. And maybe if they had somehow, if Lukaku had taken those opportunities later on and they'd gotten into the group stages, they would have papered over some of the cracks for Roberto Martinez and Belgium. But in the end, crashing out in the group stage is no less than they deserve, no less than some of that infighting kind of suggested. And now Kevin De Bruyne comes back to where he feels happiest, playing in a role that we know so wonderfully well, with a striker who will finish off those chances. And again, it showed exactly how good a player Kevin De Bruyne is, and what we know he can bring to the table, as opposed to what we saw for the couple of weeks that Belgium were in the World Cup tournament.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
Mark, you nodded there when he said happy place, right, for Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, I mean, that thing about happy place is bang on, because Belgium, as we know, have got a supremely talented squad, but a lot of players that either are past their best or are not performing well. And when De Bruyne goes away with Belgium, he's looking around thinking, can I rely on Lukaku? Can I rely on Eden Hazard? Can I rely on the midfielders around me? With City, he knows that every pass that he makes is finding a world-class player, or a player that's going to do something with the ball. And it's almost like an autopilot at City. He just knows he's surrounded by. He's got a great coach. He's got great players. He's got Haaland instead of Lukaku. He's got Bernardo Silva instead of Eden Hazard. I mean, it just knows that everything at City is going to come off, and they're going to win more games than not. I think with Belgium, it's years and years and tournament after tournament disappointment. It's beginning to weigh down on them now. And I think De Bruyne is frustrated by the fact that he knows that he's never going to get that fulfillment on international football that he gets with City. And I think going back to City, it's like a comfort blanket, isn't it? But I think that is a reality for a lot of players. When the England team didn't do so well in the early 2000s, so-called golden generation, I think that a lot of the players, the Chelsea players, the Man United players, went back to their clubs knowing that they were in a better team at club level than at international level. And I think sometimes international football is a step down, and the elite players get frustrated by it because they're not playing with players of a similar caliber or similar desire, or with City, a similar kind of organisation and structure which you just know is built to win.
Yeah, well, we've got the Premier League to look forward to now. City will be in action against Leeds on December 28th. Liverpool take on Aston Villa on Boxing Day. But I suppose all the focus, Mark Ogden, has to be back on Arsenal. They ended strong before the break in action. They're still leading the table, obviously. No one's got anywhere. No games have been played. They're the focus of your latest article?
Yeah, the point of the piece is that I think now is when it really gets real for Arsenal, because they've only played 14 games at the top at Christmas. And I think usually by now the teams have played 17, 18 games, so you've got a bit more depth in the season. So is it a bit unfair to say that Arsenal are top at Christmas and it's theirs to lose? It probably is, because they've not had enough game time yet and they haven't played City yet. And let's be honest, they've lost Gabriel Jesus, it's a massive loss. He could be out for 4 months. Now, people say, well, he's not scored that many goals. I think he scored 5 or 6, but it's what he's brought to the team in terms of he leads the line like a centre forward. He's brought a winning mentality. He brings players in. He's created so many assists, and I think he's given them a lot of confidence. So somehow Arsenal have got to find a way to replace Gabriel Jesus. And also the question marks of Ben White. Is Ben White going to be able to pick up where he left off before the World Cup? Because he left the World Cup in, unusual circumstances, personal reasons. We don't quite know what that is yet. So is he in the right frame of mind to play for Arsenal? So Arsenal have had a bad World Cup in some ways. Bukayo Saka had a good tournament and Martinez come back and he may sign a new contract. But in terms of Arsenal's big play, you just wonder whether they've come back in the right frame of mind. And it's going to be tough for Arsenal because they've got a lot of games coming up now. They've got a really tough 6 weeks ahead. They've got, West Ham at home at the weekend, tough London derby. Then they've got Brighton. Then I think between now and mid-February, they've got Man City, they've got Tottenham, they've got Man United and Newcastle. So we're really going to find out whether Arsenal have got what it takes. They've got a good lead. They've got a 5-point lead, but they're a young squad, an inexperienced squad. And I've seen Man City play last night against Liverpool, thinking, "Uh-oh, here we go. Man City could, win 20 out of the next 21 games quite easily, and that'll be the worry for Arsenal."
It is. It's funny, isn't it, Shaka? Because as Mark's just said, it's a 5-point lead. They've done everything that would have been expected of them up until this point. And yet before the break for the World Cup, it was still a big question as to whether we could actually call them title favourites. And everyone's still saying, well, obviously City are title favourites. Can they keep this up in part of the season? I know it's not the full second part of the season, but obviously there's been that break at the time it came. Can they pick up where they left off?
They can pick up whether they can maintain that for the length of the season. I think the January transfer window will determine that. And I'm with Mark in that Gabriel Jesus has been absolutely phenomenal for Arsenal. And how do you replace that? Again, January will determine that. And again, Mark is right. It's less about goals with Gabriel Jesus and how he leads the line, and a certain level of leadership that I think Arsenal have been missing for quite some time. And now, how do you go without that for this extended period? And so, as I say, it comes down to who is able to be brought in and how quickly they hit their stride in filling that void. At the same time, I still make Arsenal second favourites because of right now, and like most, because we know and we've seen Arsenal kind of had a good half of a season and then trail off in the second half. They've not put together two good halves for quite some time. And on the other side of that very same coin, you know that City can. We know what City can do from pillar to post. They continue to show that. So we know what City could do. We're still waiting for Arsenal to prove us wrong, as it were. So right now, halfway through, or just about halfway through, I still feel that City are favourites.
Shaka, can I just ask you something? I don't want to kind of dig into negative memories here, but you've been in a similar situation to Arsenal with Newcastle back in 95, 96. You had a good lead. You were entertaining people. You were an inexperienced team, but you knew over your shoulder you had this team of serial winners that hadn't had a great start, but they're still there. Do you sense that in the back of your mind, or do you just focus on what's ahead of you, or do you think, here we go, every result they get is chipping away at the confidence?
Well, you try to focus on what's ahead of you, but I often say that it's a lot easier to chase than it is to lead. Where when you're leading, as Arsenal are, and we were back in that 95-96 season, every game just feels like you have to set a marker down and you have no room. And then when you have somebody like Manchester United chasing, every slip, and everybody has a little slip, is capitalized on. And as a team who doesn't have that experience of leading from the front, that pressure, when you draw, when you drop any points, whether it's 2 or 3 points, that pressure ramps up immeasurably, and it does take a significant toll. So you're right on that. It's not easy for a team who don't have that experience, and oftentimes, you see this time and time again, teams hit the post, so to speak, before they go on and win that title. City finished second before they won. Liverpool just missed out, and then they won the title. Those kinds of learning experiences are invaluable in the longer run. Now, Arsenal have not had their hit the post moment, let's call it. So we will see how the rest of the season kind of pans out.
I would love it if we got an Arteta I would love it moment, just in reference to that. Listen, Mark, how important are those games going to be? You mentioned the Arsenal City games, because we haven't seen that yet. It was taken away from us because of games being postponed, obviously due to the passing of the Queen and European fixtures having to be honoured. So we haven't seen it. How important are they going to be?
They're going to be really important because, let's flip it around a bit. Arsenal got a 5-point lead, so I think that City's margin for error is kind of reduced. If Arsenal put up an 8-point lead, then you can start saying, well, maybe that's a big enough gap, because as it is now 5 points, 2 games against City to play, well, City win those 2 games at the top of the league. But I think if Arsenal can pull away a little bit, so that first game in mid-February, I think it's a really, really big game, because by mid-February, we'll know if Arsenal are serious. If Arsenal are still top of the league by then, or even in the shake or even second, then the winners of that game, that reminds you a little bit of the other way when Leicester played for the title in 2016. They just kept winning. They just kept winning and winning and winning. And when the big games came around, they won them. And that's what Arsenal need to do. They really need to get a result against City. If City beat Arsenal, and again, sorry, Shaq, we're going back to the Newcastle Man United situation back in '96, when the team that has got that experience wins the big game, you can just sense that the momentum shifts. So Arsenal really need to win that game. And I think that they can do it. I think it's at the Emirates, so it's in their grasp to do it. But if Arsenal don't win that game, you just think, well, City are just going to reel them in.
What happened in 95, 96? I totally forget.
All I'm saying is Mark chose violence today. Those games, February 15th and April 26th. Listen, Mikel Arteta's got himself quite the wish list for the festive season. He's been talking about the January transfer window. Let's hear more from what the Arsenal manager had to say.
We are going to be active, and active means that always we look into strengthen the team. This squad still doesn't have the luxury of not maximizing every single window, and we have to do that because it's really important. But then we want to get the right profile, the right player, and a player that really is going to impact the team and take us to the next level.
Well, it sounds nice. There's obviously a few players of interest to many a club at the moment, but I suppose what they've got to be concerned about, Marcus, as we've been talking about, is a replacement for Gabriel Jesus right now.
Yeah, I mean, the January market is notoriously difficult, and I think last January Arsenal could have signed Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina, and he ended up going to Juventus. And I think if they'd have made the move for him then, that might have got him in the Champions League last season. So it is an important window, but there's very rarely a player that you think, yeah, will bring you and make a difference. So let's say, for instance, that Cody Gakpo is available. Would Arsenal go for Gakpo? Would he be a replacement for Gabriel Jesus? I don't think he will be. I don't think Gakpo's. I don't think he's quite ready for the Premier League yet. But if Arsenal do make that kind of signing, when Jesus is fit, they've suddenly got, they've got two players vying for the same position. So it's a difficult time to make a signing. But you look around the squad they've got, and I'm not quite sure they've got what they need to fill the hole. So it's a really tough one for Arteta. Maybe there's a loan out there. Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe, joking. But, somebody, there needs to be the right player available, but not necessarily a long-term deal, because it has to be somebody that can fill a gap in the short term until Jesus is fit, and somebody who will also come in and not upset the harmony in the dressing room. So again, Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe not. So it's finding the right player who's prepared to come in on a short-term basis, or prepared to come in and accept that he's got to fight for Jesus when he's fit. So it's a really tough deal for anyone to do, for Arsenal to do at this stage.
Definitely chose violence today, didn't you, Shaka?
Yeah, I like this version of Mark. I do. Nobody's safe.
I would love that, I'll tell you what. When it comes to Man City, Shaka, I suppose the big point is making sure Erling Haaland stays fit. And we can see that he seems to be already taking those measures to not overwork him.
Yeah, without question. And listen, he had a little bit of an injury layoff in his last season at Dortmund. So far this season, no real signs of that. And then having the break during the World Cup, I think benefits him immeasurably, just to kind of recalibrate after making that shift of leagues. And listen, I know he's fitted in seamlessly, but making the shift in league, the step up in pace, and step up in expectation as a club at Manchester City, it's good just to have that little bit of a downtime. And I think that benefits him. Haaland stays fit. Kevin De Bruyne stays fit. I think without question, City otherwise are deep enough in every single position. And you don't really see, and with the greatest respect to Arsenal, I've spoken about their threat. I don't see how anybody denies City. Again, Arsenal will have a big say about that between now and me.
Yeah, it's almost unfair, isn't it, that Man City have got this great striker in Erling Haaland who's brilliant at the best of times, but he's got a 6-week break as well to freshen up and rest up. I mean, it's like, come on, guys, let's kind of make it a fair playing field. So I do wonder that, Haaland came back. For the first 20 minutes last night, I've never seen a player like it. It was absolutely off the scale in terms of chasing everything down, putting tackles in, assist, almost scoring after the first 20 odd seconds. So I just think with Haaland and the form that he's in, they're just going to pull away, because he's such an unusually very good player. I mean, we're talking Alan Shearer levels here. This guy will score goals wherever he goes in his career. He'll score so many goals, and I think he'll probably end up with 45, maybe 50 goals. I think he took it to 24 last night. It's not even Christmas yet. He's got 24 goals this season. So I do worry about City pulling away and just making it, a one-horse race. But you never know. I mean, nobody wants to wish injuries or loss of form on anybody, but sometimes a player is just, a twist of a knee or a hamstring away from being out for 3 or 4 weeks or months, and then that makes a massive difference, because if City did lose Haaland, then obviously, Julian Alvarez isn't bad to come in, but he's still a young player that's unproven, so nobody can replace Haaland. So that's all that the Premier League can hope for, that Haaland misses a few games, but I think he looks so strong. He's had a break. I just think, he's going to score 50 goals this season.
Mark, the unproven World Cup winning Julian Alvarez.
Yeah.
I know, right?
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. Shek, I want to talk about Newcastle. Need anything?
I don't think so. And listen, I thought this January 2022, Eddie Howe won the January transfer window, no question. A club sitting bottom of the Premier League, they may have just gotten off the bottom come January. And how do you bring players in when you're staying relegation in the face? Yeah, he brought in players like Bruno Guimaraes and just totally transformed Newcastle's season. And now the outlook for this one. And Newcastle sitting third in the table. Still have Isaac to come back after he had a very bright start to his time at St. James's Park and then fell injured. But Callum Wilson is there. So I know there's been a lot of talk about Christian Pulisic coming in as well, maybe adding further competition for places. But right now, everybody's playing well. So the only thing you can see is a discussion around Newcastle's depth. But that, I feel, is more a long-term discussion if they qualify for Europe and have to contend with that come next season. But right now, I think things are sitting very nicely indeed. And again, you don't want to upset the balance of not just the team, but the dressing room in a similar way that we were discussing around Arsenal and what they may do this January transfer window.
Obviously, loads of players in the World Cup have stood out, Mark. Two of them that many have been talking about, Josko Gvardiol and also Sofian Amrabat. And Spurs have been linked with both of these players. There's always a risk when it comes to signing players off the back of a World Cup, but do you think these two could help strengthen this side?
I think whoever gets Gvardiol has got an amazing defender. I think they've got a guy that can be one of the best defenders in the world for the next 10 years. Amrabat, again, had a great tournament, but for me, I'd put everything into getting Gvardiol. And I think I'd be surprised if Tottenham get him. I think Chelsea are front of the queue there. I think he had such a great tournament for Croatia, and people will point to the fact that he got done by Lionel Messi in the semi-final. But come on, if your only mistake is to be done by a genius in a World Cup semi-final, I think you've done okay. But he, for me, is absolutely nailed on to be a brilliant Premier League centre half. He's just got everything. He's got pace. He's got strength. He can read the game. He is the player that's immersed in the World Cup. I'd rather sign a defender at the World Cup than a centre forward or a striker, because I think sometimes if you're banking on players that have a good World Cup in terms of goals, then it's a different scenario in an international tournament. But Gvardiol, I just think there's no danger there. I think wherever he goes, he'll be a success.
All right. So we want to talk about Manchester United. We can go quite deep on this one as well, because obviously there's players that they're looking to bring in. But one of the interesting things that we've seen of late is the talk about Marcus Rashford. What is the actual latest there, Mark? Because we've seen some great form from him under Erik ten Hag. Obviously did well for England in the World Cup. Then he looked great the other day against Burnley, scored that goal, really nice goal as well. So are they going to trigger that 1 year to keep him on? And are they right to do so?
Well, they have triggered the 1 year. That's been done 2 or 3 days ago. I think it was there's 2 or 3 players that have been done, and Rashford is one of them. Yeah, I'm still on the fence with Marcus Rashford. I think it was a great goal against Burnley, but it was against Burnley. Let's be honest, the Championship team, and as fantastic as it was, I think the issue with Marcus Rashford is that he has that ability to do something spectacular. And to be fair to him, he does score goals in big games. He scored against Liverpool, against the Chelseas. But I want to see it more consistently from Rashford against the teams that aren't quite as glamorous as Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea. I want to see him be the guy that leads the line for Man United and lead, basically is a leader of the team. Cristiano Ronaldo's gone there. They need somebody to be the main guy up front. And I think prior to Ronaldo coming, I think Rashford was growing into that, but he's just had a really bad 18 months. And I think, again, we talk about his performance in the World Cup for England. He scored 2 goals against Wales and a goal against Iran. Let's be honest and say, who does Rashford perform well against? And it's not often the top teams. At least I don't see it often enough. So I want to see Rashford do it consistently for the rest of the season, for the next 6 months, and then United can decide on his contract and whether they should pay him. And it will be a big contract to keep him for the long term. You're probably looking at, if we get to next summer, he'll have 12 months left in his contract. Paris Saint-Germain have made it clear they're interested. Nasser Khalifa, the president, was speaking about him in Qatar. So next summer, 12 months in his contract, Man United either have to say, right, we're going to give you a massive new contract for the next 5 years and believe that he's going to deliver, or they can say, look, you've had enough chances now. You're not consistent enough. We're going to move you on. Eric Ten Hag likes him, but I think there's better out there than Marcus Rashford. United can do better than Marcus Rashford if they find the right player. So I'm on the fence. I think he's got 6 months to prove that he really does deserve a big new contract at Man United.
So just a second. So triggering the 1 year is a win-win for them then, because they get Marcus Rashford in the form that he's in, and they get to decide whether they do give him the big bucks that we hear the reports that he's asking for. Yeah,
it's what Man United do. So they have this policy. They give players a 4 or 5 year contract, but within those contracts, they have an option on the club side to trigger for an extra 12 months. So it's just to protect the asset, basically. It's to make sure that if they get to the final 12 months of the contract, they can say, look, we'll sell you on. Listen, United haven't done very well at that in the past. They've given extended contracts to players who were never going to play. I mean, Phil Jones had a new contract 2 or 3 years ago. Chris Smalling got a new deal on a similar basis. So United's judgment on extending contracts hasn't been great recently. I think David De Gea, they've got a decision to make on him. He's got 6 months left in his contract. They haven't decided yet whether to trigger an extra 12 months on that. We saw them lose Paul Pogba this summer by not deciding on his contract when they should have done. So United need to learn the lesson. And I think Rashford is a case in point. With Rashford, with Pogba, they sat on their hands and they decided not to offer a contract, and he ran his contract down. Next summer, 2023, is make or break. They either sell Rashford or give him a new deal, because they can't allow him to stay and leave as a free agent in 2024.
Xhaka, do you agree with what Mark's saying about Marcus Rashford?
Yeah, I do. I will disagree with Mark in that I like Marcus Rashford. I think he's an incredible talent. But for whatever reason, to Mark's point, he's been a little bit inconsistent. Started so wonderfully well, and then that form dropped off. And now I think, as Mark's point, now Manchester United have found themselves in a spot not too dissimilar from Paul Pogba. What do you do with him? There are a number of clubs out there who are interested. Do you give him that bumper deal? And if he continues to be inconsistent, it just throws everything about your wage structure and how you bring players in and what those players are asking for. Or do you just let him go on a free and give up on that investment into his services? So they found themselves in a little bit of a pickle in that regard. And I say that oddly for a club like Manchester United, who seem to have gotten those decisions wrong more times than they've got them right. And that to me is bemusing. But if I'm all of a sudden installed as a shareholder in Newcastle United, I'm watching that very carefully, because I have no hesitation in taking Marcus Rashford on. And I say that, I use Newcastle as an example only because I played for Newcastle. I don't know, it could be anybody else.
Hint, if I'm installed, if I get more of a role at the club, I will take it.
Yes, my director services are available for anybody listening.
There've been a few other names linked with United, Mark. I just want to run through a few of them. I did have to laugh at Ruud van Nistelrooy saying there comes a time when you can't say no anymore with regards to Cody Gakpo. Obviously, Ruud van Nistelrooy, former Manchester United player, PSV manager. So his name, Gonzalo Ramos, which made me chuckle, saying Eric Ten Hag's interested in Gonzalo Ramos. I thought, oh, really? And then João Felix as well. Are any of these looking realistic?
I'm not too sure about Gonzalo Ramos and João Felix. I don't think João Felix fits in, with Bruno Fernandes and Christian Eriksen. I'm not quite sure where João Felix fits in there. And also, he'd come with a big fee, big wages. Cody Gakpo, I think, is the one that's most likely. United tried to get him in the summer. They were very close to agreeing a deal with PSV and with Gakpo to do it, but they decided to go a different route. And I think, he had a good World Cup, Gakpo, but I've spoken to a couple of people who actually scout that part of Europe, and they're not sure about Gakpo. They think that he does need another year, 18 months in the Netherlands, because they make the point that a lot of players have come over from Dutch football, Memphis Depay being one with a big reputation, the next big thing, and then they come to a league like the Premier League. It's too big a step. So they're suggesting maybe going to Germany first and then going to the UK. So, but Man United, can they wait? If they do that with Gakpo, maybe goes to Germany and he does really well, like Haaland did when Haaland left Salzburg for Dortmund. Sometimes you have to put your neck on the line and go for it and say, we're going to back this guy now. But I just don't know about Gakpo. I don't think the problem with United is they've got so many players up front: Rashford, Anthony Martial, Anthony, Jadon Sancho, Anthony Elanga. They're all good players, but none of them are particularly guys you could say they'll give me a 7 or 8 out of 10 every week. And I think Gakpo will be the same. What United need right now is a guy that can come in and be 8 or 9 out of 10, somebody they're going to rely upon to score goals week in, week out. And I think they need to go to the next level. I think Gakpo, another gamble. They can't gamble now, Man United. They need somebody that's ready-made. And I think that's where they need to look. So I hope for United to say that they play the long game. But I think with Gakpo, I think it's a gamble that they don't need to take. I think they can wait for a better striker.
Real Madrid have pulled a Xhaka Hislop and changed their mind on a player. You may know that Xhaka famously changed his mind on who was going to win the World Cup right in the middle of the World Cup. Backed out from Argentina, went for Brazil, and then took Argentina again. He thought I wouldn't remind him of it. I'm never going to let him live it down, at least until the new year anyway.
Well, I'm
Anyway, let me
going to
get
have
to my point.
hold on, I'm going to have to file an HR report here. Between you and Mark, I've been battered every which way. Goodness. I need to lie down now.
Real Madrid have pulled a Xhaka Hislop and changed their mind on Jude Bellingham and are set to renew their efforts to sign him. And there is now a feeling that Liverpool would be behind them in any race to secure his signature. Where do you think would be best for him, Xhaka? Real Madrid or Liverpool, if he does have the choice?
I think, listen, first of all, I don't think you can go wrong with either of those two clubs. And I think Jude Bellingham is an incredible talent and is a success wherever he goes. But right now, you look at Real Madrid, you look at who they are and who they continue to prove themselves to be, and how they're reshaping that midfield. Tchouaméni, Camavinga coming in. I mean, Tchouaméni was signed in the summer more as a long-term prospect, and then all of a sudden Casemiro moves to Manchester United. He's thrust in. He finds his feet. He delivers for France in the World Cup as well. And you just think that Jude Bellingham coming in to that midfield to make that the midfield three for the foreseeable future for Real Madrid, I'm not sure you can get much better than that, other than comparing them to the three that they're replacing. So right now, if I'm Bellingham, that's where I'm leaning.
Last but not least, we've got Chelsea, been linked with Nkunku, and as you mentioned earlier, Mark, Guardiola, both of those players could do bits for Chelsea. Yeah,
absolutely. Nkunku, another one. I mean, Chelsea bring a lot of players in. They spend an awful lot of money in the summer, getting on for £250,000, and a lot of the players are still, hit and miss. Fofana's been injured and he hasn't kicked on. So Guardiola, I think great. I think Nkunku, it's just where are all these guys going to play? And if they're going to bring these players in, I suggest there's going to be quite a big clear out at Chelsea as well, because obviously they still have to get a fee for Lukaku, who's only back on loan at Inter Milan. So I'm intrigued by Chelsea and the deals they're doing, that they're bringing a lot of players in, but they're not moving that many players out. So at some point, there's going to have to be a kind of a reality check in terms of the finances. So, yeah, both good players, but can Chelsea actually afford to do all these deals? I don't know. I mean, what happened to FFP?
Tell me your thoughts on Jude Bellingham then, Mark, while we've been talking about it.
Yeah, so Liverpool have been really trying hard on Bellingham for a good year, 18 months now. And I think Liverpool's problem right now is the fact that they've had a poor start to the season, and they're certainly playing catch-up in terms of the league title race. In terms of the top four, I still think Liverpool will get in there. But if Liverpool miss out on the Champions League, then I think that kills their chance of getting Bellingham, because Bellingham is a Champions League player. He's not going to drop into the Europa League. But also, I think, if you've got a choice between Liverpool and Real Madrid, I think Man City will be involved as well. And again, that is a scary prospect if they sign Bellingham, having signed Haaland. But the problem, I think Liverpool's problem right now is that all of a sudden they look like they need to rebuild the midfield. Apart from Fabinho, you've got Jordan Henderson's in his mid-30s, Thiago Alcantara, 30s, James Milner, clearly, he played at right back against City last night. They suddenly look like they need a rebuild in midfield. And does Jude Bellingham want to be part of that rebuild? Or does he want to go to Real Madrid and know that he's going to win big trophies almost every year? Because, Barcelona right now, they're in a transitional period. So in terms of what the right move would be, I think Real Madrid. And Liverpool as well, they've got a situation with their owners. Who are the owners going to be? Will that affect who the manager is? there's a lot of uncertainty right now about Liverpool, which wasn't there 12 months ago when they started making real serious moves for Bellingham. So, and if City and the Real Madrid in the running for Bellingham, does the fee become prohibitive for a club whose owners are looking to sell? So I think Liverpool's prospects on Bellingham are diminishing because of the situation with the owners. They're out of the top four right now, and the fact that they're up against two extremely wealthy clubs. And who knows, if Man United get back in the Champions League, then they'll be interested in Bellingham too. So I think Liverpool might have missed the boat on Bellingham. I think they should have gone in the summer when they had a free run at him. Now I think circumstances might dictate that they might just miss out on him.
All right, so we've got to talk about Lionel Messi because all reports point to an extension with PSG on his contract there. He said he's not finished yet after the World Cup when many were asking him if now you've completed football, you want to retire. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But Joan Laporta, Barcelona president, is holding out and hoping he'll return to Barcelona. Listen to this.
Per nosaltres és és el millor jugador de tots els temps i l'hem tingut a Can Barça i s'ha fet jugador a Can Barça i jo estic convençut que ell en el seu cor doncs, és culer. Nosaltres el tenim com un culer més i un culer de referència que ens ha donat moltes alegries. Aleshores, sempre estarà vinculat al Barça. Si torna o no com a jugador, bueno, en aquests moments, ja et dic, és jugador del Paris Saint-Germain, a nosaltres ens agradaria doncs, que molt, a més, que el Leo algun dia tornés al Barça, però això ja es veurà.
Shaka, what do you think? Do you like him staying on at PSG or would you like to see him back at Barcelona?
I admit, I struggle to see Lionel Messi in anything but a Barcelona shirt till he signed for PSG. I never thought it would happen until it did. And he's certainly enjoyed his time there after a slow start. He's had a fantastic season so far this time around. And PSG are in pole position, I think. So it's... And we had Jules on the show last night and saying that as much as reports are PSG have triggered that 12-year extension or offered or however you phrase it, it's a long way away from that. Messi's still obviously away with Argentina. But I think all things being even, as I put it, PSG are in pole position. So they I think, are favourite to sign him on. I understand Barcelona's continued interest in him, though I have to say, and I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this. Laporta kind of strikes you as that scorned ex who refuses to give up and just keeps, sliding in your DMs. And you just think, just give it a break. We know you're interested. We know you're there. Let's just let this play out and see what comes of it.
Is he doing a Salt Bay and being a pest then, Shaka? Is that what you're saying?
Let me tell you something. Hold up. Salt Bay has become a football icon. Well, I'm not sure icon is the right word. But who thought we'd be having this discussion about the 2022 World Cup? Let me tell you something. For as good as this World Cup has been, it has provided a level of bizarrity, if that's a word, that nobody saw coming.
That is true. That is true. Now, listen, just to end, Shaka, and I'll just come to you quickly on this. I'll get your thoughts on it too, Mark. We heard about a rallying speech from Kylian Mbappe at halftime in the World Cup final. And obviously, he put in quite the showing and still didn't come out with the World Cup. I mean, he has already got one that he earned at 19. What are your thoughts on the future of Kylian Mbappe right now? We know the talent that he has, but I feel as though going into the World Cup, a lot of the talk was what was going on off the pitch, which he brought on himself on a number of occasions for a number of things that he was talking about. But then you do see this other side to him, the talent, the dedication, and the fact that he did take on this leadership role at halftime in the dressing room, Shaka.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love everything about this, and for all my own criticisms around Kylian Mbappe, he has quietened every single one of those. Listen, from how poor France were in the first half to what we now come to understand of his own comments at halftime and how they responded, scoring a hat-trick in a World Cup final a few days before he turned 24. The leadership in the dressing room, the leadership on the park, And then even the little things like being back at training just a few days after he returns just has the makings of, and I know we've been having the discussion about the greatest of all time with Lionel Messi, etc., but he is showing that he is the heir apparent in so many ways. And the more I come to understand and hear about all of this, the more I absolutely love it, and it has me walking back some of my own criticisms around his decision to stay at PSG. It even had me drawing comparisons, and I know they're easy comparisons, with Pele. Pele, who won his first 2 World Cups, Kylian Mbappe coming within a penalty shootout of doing the same, Pele playing his entire career in Brazil. Will we be having that conversation around Mbappe and Paris? Time will only tell. But I think it's the similarities are uncanny and has me growing in my own admiration of Kylian Mbappe.
How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing him play for Monaco at Man City in 2017 when he was just an amazing performance. It was like, wow, who's this kid? And, you know, we saw who he was and what he became and who he is right now. And I think, I think he has to leave PSG. I think that he's done his time there. And I think we want to see Kylian Mbappe scoring goals in the Classico or, you know, deciding a Premier League game involving United or Liverpool or Man City. I don't think the French league gives him enough on a professional basis. It's not rewarding enough. And, you know, who's PSG's big rival in France? They haven't got one. You know, what are the big games? What are the defining games? They haven't got any. He has to go to a club where, you know, he can elevate himself to the Ronaldos, the Messis, the Raúls, these players that have made their names at the super clubs. You know, go to Liverpool, go to Man United, go to the historic clubs where you can measure yourself against legends and icons of the past. At PSG, there's none of that, and I think it's quite sad, really, that this potential that he could see out of the best years of his career at Paris Saint-Germain. I just don't think a player of Mbappe's stature deserves it. I think he really if he's going to be the guy that takes over from Ronaldo and Messi, and he's going to vie with Erling Haaland for this. He has to play in a big league, and with all due respect to Ligue 1, it's not a big league. It's the Paris Saint-Germain league, and everybody else is playing for second place. He needs to test himself against the very best and put himself in the, you know, challenge himself to put himself on those, you know, those pantheons with the greats at Barca, Real Madrid, Man United, Liverpool, whoever you want to say. He ain't going to do that at Paris Saint-Germain. They're a football club, but they're not a football club at the same level as those clubs.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be returning to talk about Kylian Mbappe. We're going to be doing this a lot more. We'll be back on Boxing Day. Make sure that you are. But for now, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you soon.
Celebrate the holidays together with your family.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.